Yeah. Yeah. His mother.
When, just now?
Oh, no, a week ago.
Oh, just now.
Yeah. Hilchos Tefilin Moses of Sefer Torah, Perek Ches. Again, this is the second Perek of Hilchos Sefer Torah. Okay. The Rambam told us in the previous Perek that there's a concept of Psuchas and Stumah. Certain parshas are formed in terms of how they are in relation to the previous parsha. That's called the Psuchas and Stumah. The Rambam is going to tell us in this Perek exactly what that means. It's not the Rambam Parsha Psuchah, an open parsha, which we'll define. There are two possible ways such a parsha looks in the Sefer Torah. It depends. As we'll see, this type of parsha always starts at the beginning of the line. So in Gemara and Sashita, if you finish the previous parsha in the middle of the line, so what do you do to make it psuch, make it open? The rest of the line remains open. And you start the next parsha from the second line. So line 7. The second part of the line has no letters. You finish the middle of the line. You left the blank. It's open in the sense that you imagine the Pac-Man game, right? So you know what I'm talking about. So it always, if the characters there could escape because the column, the margin is open. So now if you go out, okay. Okay. So that's called the open parsha. The Havdil, but everything has to teach you a lesson in Torah. So that's called. You start with the next parsha, the second line. This way, the space that precedes it is open. It's called the parsha psucha. Meaning the second parsha is the parsha psucha. Okay. So the parsha psucha, then you start the next parsha from the beginning of the next line. Going there, for example, this now gives us a picture of what it looks like. The lines you see are letters. The Rambam just writes lines instead of letters. That's what it looks like, right? That's what the second half of the line, the second part of the line, the last third or whatever it is open and missing. Good, fine. So it's an open margin. Now, Mezbon, when it is true that it's okay to do that, that satisfies obligation. Of an open parsha, this space at the end of the line is open is at least a length of 9 letters, like Asher 3 times. What if you got to the end of the line? It's not mamish the very, very end. There's only a small amount of space remaining, less than 9 letters, let's say 8 or less. Then in that case, that's one answer. Or you can go to say for that matter, unless you mamish finish at the end. So at least nothing is over. In either of those scenarios, what you do is, let's say this line is discussing what ends the previous parsha, line 6. Then line 7 is completely blank in that case. And the third line, in this case, line 8, let's say the next line, that's the one where you start. You go to this here, which is the next picture you see down, the same picture of the concept where this actually exists, right? So here in this picture, my Rambam, the example is he finished mamish at the very end of the line. And then, therefore, he finishes leaves an entire line blank. So that is the psuch that's open on both sides, mind you, in this case. But the point is at the left margin, and it's open at the end margin. The next line starts from the beginning. But it will be true also if the last end of the line, according to the Rambam, also has enough space for 8 letters. Yeah, interesting. So my Rambam is not. So our Rambam, and your Rambam as well, it goes all the way to the end. But okay, the point is the same. So now, why do you have to start? Why do you have to leave an entire line open? Why can't you start at the end of the next line? Because then that's a stoma. Because then it's closed, it's blocked in on the end of the previous line and the next line. That's going to be one of the options of Kasha Stuma.
Why is it closed? It's open on that side.
What would happen if in this example, instead of leaving this line completely blank, you start at the end of this line over here? Why can't you do that? So the I'm saying the holds not. You have to leave the entire line blank because if the end margin has letters, it's called a stuma. Stuma means that the end margin is open.
On stuma only means the end line, no matter where it is. Right?
Exactly. That's exactly what stuma means. Yeah. Halacha base. The parasha stuma, the parasha stuma, which we'll see always starts dafka not at the beginning of the line, dafka not at the beginning, has 3 possible options. If you finish the middle of the line somewhere. You leave the shear of 9 letters. Again, we're talking about a case where you have at least 9 letters left. You leave that shear of the parsha, the space, which, as we said, is a minimum of 9 letters. In all these scenarios, so far in the parsha psucha also, you have to leave a space of 9 letters. But from psucha, you have to have 9 letters at the end of the line with nothing remaining. If you have that, good. If not, if you go to the next line entirely, you leave the entire line blank. And then start at the beginning of the third line. Here, if you start, if it's a partial stuma, Then the Yesh Shalosh Tush is three options. In Gama Be'emtza Shita, if you finish writing the previous parasha middle of the line, Miach Le'edach Teshir, leave the space, the required element in a shear of 9 letters. Umas Lichteh Teshir B'Shita. Then you start writing at the end of the line, at least one word of the next parasha, because a parasha of the coming parasha, Shishtuma, which is now going to be a parasha Shtuma. It turns out the space of 9 letters, Be'emtza, in the center, things like this. So you have, some amount of words, maybe even 1 or 2, whatever it is, a space of 9 letters blank, again, proportionate to the size of the sefer's handwriting. And then you have, at the end of the line, 1 word or 2 words, as many as you need, provided you left 9 letters blank before the parasha. That's one option of a parasha. Stuma, it's the most common option. Base. That's the ideal option. Okay. In Parsha Psucha, you see this particular you see all the time where the line in the middle of the in the middle of the line it ends, and the parsha is open. You see all the time in the Secretariat. Have you ever saw a Secretariat where the second option of a psucha is there? No, because our suffering know exactly how to fetch it. That doesn't happen. If you go to museums, the Jewish Museum in Philadelphia, I saw this once, other places, old Secretariat, where the suffering were not such experts, you get a mistake. It wasn't so easy to just take a new review because it was expensive. So they would tackle it. You have that option. You see it sometimes. You see in museums. In Europe, I think in Athens, in the Jewish Museum over there, I saw that. Okay. So this is the most common option of a parasha stuma. Number 2. What if you don't finish? Let's say for example, at the line, if you finish close to the line, if you leave a space of 9 letters, you're not going to be able to add a word at the end unless it's going to extend from the margin. So let's say let's say Vayadaber is the next word of the next parasha. Now we learned you could have 2 letters taken out by the way. Okay, but let's say for example there's 11 spaces left. So if I'm going to add a space of 9 letters blank, then by Vayadaber, just above you will be the margin. Daled Beis should be outside the margin. You shouldn't do that. So what do? You can't just leave a space of 9 letters and write a word. How do you make the Parsha Suma? Says the Rambam, you didn't have enough space. You not enough space. After you write the last word of the previous parasha, last words of the previous parasha, now for this line, the remaining space doesn't have enough for 9 blank letters, 9 blank spaces plus the word. Then in that case, leave the rest of the line open. Leave some space from the next line, and then start writing the parasha, some indentation into the next line, like this, which I assume means you're having a total of 9 letters in this, right?
Where?
The truth is, you have a total of 9 letters anyways. Yeah. Because in this case over here, what do you have? Okay, that's what you have. Let's say you have less than enough to leave 9 spaces blank plus a word. How much do you have? Let's say by Dabar is 5 letters. 9 plus 5 is 14. So let's say you only have 11 spaces. So you can't go. So you leave that whole 11 space at the end of the line. If you start at the beginning of the next line, it's going to be Pasha Psucha. So you have to leave us an extra space. And then, in the beginning of the line, and then, right? Yeah?
Why is it called Psucha?
So that's one of the options of Pasha Psucha.
To start at the beginning.
Because you left the entire space open in the beginning of the next line. Exactly. That will be a Pasha Psucha. And it'd be possible if you do that, right? And it's called Psucha because in that case it's open, and that's the end of the story, right? Over here, because you indented, it's like you have this, ideally Pasha Stuma is the first option, where the empty space is closed on either side. Here it is on either side, but the other side is like this, next to the line 5 and line 6, instead of the same line.
Okay.
Now, again, in my example, you have 11 spaces empty. You leave some letters in the next line open. It doesn't say how many, by the way.
Right.
But the Choy has to be at least 2, I suppose, based on what he can do to the Pasuk over here. 1 for sure, ideally 2. But let's say the previous line, for example, you have 7 letters left. Or 6. Let's say 6 letters left. The next line, you have to make an indentation to make it a Pasha Shuma. How many letters? The Choy 3 minimum. It has to be a total of 9 letters, I suppose. See what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah.
Gimel. Option 3. The im, that's beam gamma if you finished off the previous parasha. The say if Hashita Mamash at the very, very end of the line, and it's Parsha Stuma the next one, you have to leave the space of 9 letters at the beginning of the next line. You start writing the Parsha Stuma, the next parasha, in the middle of the line, 9 letters in, it goes like this here. Now again, you have to leave only that part blank. If you want to be extra firm and you leave the whole line blank, start the next line, then that's the Pasha Psucha.
Right.
That won't work. It says it turns out Pasha Psucha always starts at the beginning of the line. Either of the two options. Parsha Shtuma, Tichlasa, Emtza, Shitla Elam, and the Parsha Psucha. Shtuma, excuse me, never starts at the beginning of the line. Always Dafka, and somewhere away from the beginning. Ideally at the very end, which is always happening by us, but if the Sefer goofs it up, you can always do it that way.
Okay.
Halacha Gimel. Sefer Shein will come in the middle of Mal B'chas. You have a Sefer Torah that's not correct with the amount of the Mal B'chas, right? The letters are spelled with Vavs and Yuds, without Vavs and Yuds. Right? Mal means before with Vav and Yud, the Chas is without that. So now, but there's mistakes, you have to correct it. So actually, we said already, there's the option of fixing it, particularly, especially if it's a mole, you can just erase it, and then if the chas is a problem, right? Now, mechar means the vart is mikra mole, but using mole and chas together. Now, there are times you can also fix a chas, especially if it's a unit at the end of a word. Right? Or let's say if it's another one at the word, you can also add it, but that's sticking out from the margin, so it's not so good. Let's say the letter already has, it already has two letters sticking out. So Yud is a small letter, or even sometimes because Yud is a very thin letter, even a Vav is again. So erasing the aleph, putting in an aleph and a Yud in that space is not so terrible. Aleph and a Vav, I don't know, but the point is that it's also possible to fix a chasser. It's not ideal. Okay. Like we said in Halach Yud right in Perek Zalach Yud. What if I made a mistake in terms of making a psucha or a stoma? I wrote the different Torah, and now suddenly realize that this parsha is supposed to be a psucha or a stoma, or vice versa. Right? So then, because of psucha stoma, or for that matter, you made a parsha with no parsha supposed to be. Like the end of parashas, Vayigash, in Parsha Vayichi, there's no. It's the end of the next Sedra. But the Sefer in his mind, he knows it's a new Sedra, the weekly Parsha, so he thinks supposed to be a space, whatever. Okay. So then you left the space where no space belongs, whether it's a Psuch or a Stumma, whatever, you added an extra Parsha. And for that matter, you didn't make a Psuch or a Stumma, we're supposed to have a Psuch or a Stumma. Yeah? Or for that matter, we'll see that the Shiras of Azyash and the Shiras of Azinu has a unique form. And if you don't do that, it's like a regular secretary, how is it possible? It's possible. The aim like Takana, there's no way to fix it. You have to correct the entire column, to remove the entire column, but the mistake exists. Now, the Rambam doesn't say the entire urea, because hypothetically, if it's the last column in that piece of parchment, cut off just that column, the chayr is an option. And then start the next year, the next column, if you're middle writing it, or if the Sifter is already written, you can just add its own urea if possible. Or maybe you have to actually write a whole new column and include the next one, whatever it is. But the chayr is an option. Now, then, but plus you say that's only true if you have 3 columns remaining from after you cut the one that's a mistake off. If not, you have to replace the entire piece of parchment. Good. So that is.
Because each place has to have three columns.
Right, ideal. Correct. So that's that. Now again, could you maybe just erase, let's say, if you erase, enough lines and rearrange the writing in a way that now you can correct that parsha. Let's say just one word. Instead of let's say, for example, make a psucha stuma. You did a psucha stuma, but again, because it's just one word off, you could actually just erase 3 or 4 or 5 lines. Write a little smaller than usual, and you'll fix it. Can you do that? So some people say, yeah, it's not the groundhog. There's a reason to say no. What's the reason? It's when you fix the space. Because as far as they say, the entire parsha, if the din of the space applies to the entire parsha which follows it. And therefore you have to erase the entire parsha. Okay. Halacha dal. Says it down. Because I saw a tremendous mistake, tremendous disgrace, right? Problematic, problems. All the Sifteres I saw, one of these matters of what is the proper image of how the Torah is supposed to look, and how, in which it's supposed to stuma, and how it's supposed to look. They Balaam, they say it's the masters of tradition who called it that?
No. What makes it so?
Stuma is
one second, let me show you.
space in between. Stuma means space, and you can write it and write it. Stuma means writing, empty space, writing. It's closed in.
Not necessarily so.
Not Stuma.
Sorry.
Enclosed.
Here. Okay. Here. This is a parsha psucha. It's open. right? If there's a little mention here, you can walk out. This is a stuma, it's closed. It's in here, it's back and forth.
But he also said that a stuma, in case
Now,
this whole thing
this
was
is
empty,
the ideal version of a parsha stuma.
However,
and this is the question of shul.
Right.
What do you do if you finish the
if
parsha?
let's say it's completely empty.
So what do you do if you got to the end? There's not enough. This is 9 letters minimum, ideally, right? What if you finish at the end over here? There's only 8 spaces. So now I can't write Vaydaber. Unless I can't write Vaydaber. So what do? Have like a stuma. So I leave this whole thing open and I indent in the next one over.
But I don't start at the beginning.
So why is it called stuma?
Because the space is surrounded on both sides by the, even over here the left margin is open.
And here it's going to be open.
Yes, but the first word, just like over here, these 2 letters, these 2 words are considered like they're closing in this space. Over here, these 2 words are like closing in the space, but the space is half here and half here.
Right. By the way, it's the first time that I've learned this. That it makes any sense.
Baruch Hashem. I gave a shit last time around. Now I'm embarrassed. I should okay. Actually, last time around I ended the shit. I recorded that. That's 2 options. And the third option of stoma is what? Is so that's if So that's if there's 3 options.
The second one I don't understand because the picture doesn't show it at all. But,
The second option
You
just
just pictures.
yeah. There's a stuma.
Huh?
A stuma.
Stuma, right.
Closed. Closed on both sides. Closed.
the black is
the
letters, is
and-
writing.
The black is
Writing.
and
Empty.
that makes it stuma.
Yeah, because
That's exactly what this is.
wait.
This is this, no? This is this. That is this.
Yeah, okay. But what if you didn't have if you left it completely blank because you don't have nine letters?
So then
you start over here.
Right, exactly.
So if you
Then
start
it's also
over here,
stuma.
what is it sussing between what?
Because by indenting, if you start at the beginning of the line, what would it be? That's
Sukkah.
By indenting it, you're clarifying these 2 spaces are one long space, and the last one of the previous parasha, and the next parasha are locking them in. That's the second option of stoma. And what if you finish over here and mamash at the end of the line? Then you indent 4 line letters.
Right.
That's the other option. Now it's supposed this way.
But it would seem to me that this is stuma.
Oh, it is. This is
that's
stoma.
stoma.
This is the first option of stoma. But this is if you're a safe who knows what he's doing, who finished and made sure.
And psucha would always be from the beginning of the line.
Psucha always starts at the beginning. That's an important point. Because the psucha always starts at the beginning, whatever space is prior to it, whether it's a partial line or a full line, is open. Because the stuma always starts in the middle of the line, so the space prior to it, whether it's just on that line as it is over here, or that line plus the end of the previous line, is considered locked in by it. Yeah. Good. I was thinking of grabbing this before. Everyone gets this. Everyone knows this. But okay.
No.
Like everyone realizes about the picture, but the tzura we don't always pay attention to. That's what this is. But again, because the Sefer Torah is ideal like this, you very rarely see. This is the ideal psucha. This is the ideal stoma.
Right.
The other options you almost never see on Sefer Torah. But you do see in all Sefer Torah.
Okay.
So because the fee should have easy where I'm over here. Yeah, the feature you see Shibush going across far. You see the Vamelu, yeah?
Where are we now?
Dalit? Yeah, because I saw a tremendous Shibush, tremendous, probably mishmash, bummises. And all the Sefer Torahs that I saw in these matters, some of them have psuchas, the
I'm
stumas.
assuming you're relaxed about the time because from here on you're going to be davening.
So hang on a second. The Jews will probably, let's get to 1 second.
No, now we understand.
Yeah. And also the Baal Maser, the masters of tradition who write, and they write Svarim to tell you how to write the Sefer Torahs. The Chalakim and Dvarim argue on these matters. 2 famous opinions about it. Which is also the Sefer Torah that they rely on to write these Svarim on how to write a Sefer Torah. Also have Machlekes about this. So therefore, Rambam says because I want to write the whole entire all the halachas of Torah, including the halachas of how to write Sefer Torah. I thought it fit to write all the parashas of the Torah to tell you which one is psucha, which one is stuma, how the shoe is supposed to look. In order to correct based on this, all the Sefer Torahs that are written and are corrected from them. Now, where did I get it from? Says the Rambam. The Sefer Torah I relied on these matters. Who I Sefer Heidu of Mitzrayim is the famous Sefer Torah of Egypt. Shukoil Arabes in the Svarim was written by somebody who wrote the entire Tanakh in one scroll. Shayim B'Shlayim Mishanim was Yerushalayim for many years. He got them from Egypt to Yerushalayim somehow. La'agiyah Men of the Svarim was brought there for this purpose of correcting all the Sefer Torahs in Yerushalayim, and it's so much. Everyone relied on it. It was the gold standard of this concept. Why? Ben Asher, Ben Asher, very famous didactic Aaron Ben Moshe from Shevet Asher. He was called, and he was the other famous person who disagreed with him was the Moshe Ben David or Naphtali. They had different opinions about this. Rambam said, I wrote on the first one. That was Rambam's opinion. He was the more didactic one. They lived both after Hagoyim. The year of Rabbis, Ben Asher went through the Sefer many times, making sure again and again it was correct. As it was supposed to be copied correctly. Valav Masachti, the Sefer Torah Shekshati V'Chasei. I wrote my Sefer Torah, says Rambam. I did this mitzvah. Writing Sefer Torah. That's what I relied on. This Sefer Torah is called.
He was in Yerushalayim. He was in Egypt.
So I'm not sure. I'm not. Rambam got there somehow. This Sefer Torah is called the Codex. It's called the Codex Judaic, I believe. The Aleppo Codex. The Aleppo Codex, because it got to Syria. The Jewish community had it. It was partially short in the fire. It was smuggled to Israel, and the Syrian Jewish community.
Just recently smuggled, no?
No, this is a few decades ago. The Syrian Jewish community and the Yidden of Israel had a big din Torah about who it belongs to. It was a big fight, and the Israeli people, and now it's basically held in the museum in Jerusalem. But it's under their care, but it still belongs to the Jewish community. But now I'll take it out. That was like the Peshara. So this was now some parts were burnt, unfortunately. Different pieces appear on the black market here and there over on time. It's called the Crown of Aleppo. You can Google this and read about it. It's a fascinating topic. There's other Sefer Torah that are similar to this. There's one in Leningrad also. That's another. It's called the Leningrad Codex, I guess, or whatever. It's not as authoritative, but fine. This is the same thing I'm talking about, and you can see it in the Yisrael Museum today. Fine. Now the Rambam is going to go through all the Pashas of Torah, which one are Psuchos and which ones are Stumas. I'm not going to do it on your own time. I don't think we do it together. It's not going to be a waste of our time. It's funny is that Ram does not talk about the first parsha. He's a Sefer Bereshis. What's the psuchos? The first ones, Yerakiya, Yankov Shema. Bias says, according to the Rambam, the first parsha, the din of psucha, is the space before, not the whole parsha itself. So therefore, Sefer Bereshis, is not a parsha psucha or stuma. It's not after that the first space begins. Which means, according to the Rambam, the din is in the space, not in the parsha, right? Which means maybe you could just erase those 4 or 5 lines if you make a psucha mistake instead of having to erase the whole thing. Fine, I'm not sure. Good, the Rambam goes to the entire Torah. It tells you at the end that there are a total of the psuchas are 290, the stumas are 379, and total of 696 parashas in Torah. Zok Rambam weiter. Turas Hashir Hazinu, yeah. The image of the Shir of Azinu, let's go to the end. The image of the Shir of Azinu, which is the last Shir in the Torah, right, and the Pasha Azinu, called Shita V'Shita Yishvem Tzol Revach Echad Ketzuras HaPasha Stuma. Every single line in the Pasha of Azinu has the image of exactly a Pasha Stuma. Look at this. This is the Shir of Azinu, as you see, and it's like every single line is a Pasha Stuma. Writing, space, writing. That's the entire Shir is written that way. This is called Ashita Chalukah Shtayim. Every line is divided into 2. Well, 3. Writing, space, writing, but 2 parts of writing. Because this is written ideal on 67 lines. The Elu Hanat Tevish called Shita V'Shita. This is the first line. It's supposed to be the beginning of each word. Rambam lists them all. Then he tells you the first word is supposed to be the first line of each in the second half. Lists them all. Now you know how to write the Hashir of Azinu. Let's skip the next part. Right, so Ram said Azinu, Yared, etc., etc., etc. Then you go down here, the first word, etc., etc., and the rest you know how to write your own, as he tells you, right? You see? So this is the Shir of Azinu. So the Rambam says Azinu, Yared, Kesaidim, Ki, etc. The Rambam just tells you the first word, how to do it, and the first word here, when he tells you that, you know how to.
How does it work? The blank under the written under the blank.
No, that's not. We're not there yet.
Oh no.
Hey, that's the Shir of Azyash. 1 second. Right, then Ram goes through the first letter of each line of the second half of the lines, which is Emzadaf. So the Shishma, again, the Ram goes down the column, lists them all for you, and the last one is V'chipah. Good. Right. Shiras Hayam. Oh, I thought my marriage was 15. What? I thought marriage is 15. Okay, so we have. It's 8:25. Okay, fine. Good, but okay, this is the fine, no problem. Shiras Hayam, the Shira of Azyashir, it's called the Shira of Hayam for obvious reasons. It's written on 30 lines. Shita Rishona Kedarka, the first line is as is regular, right? Okay, so it's like a regular line in the Torah, no spaces, no this, no that. Here, this is the Shira of Azyashir. The Shara Shita is the other lines after the first line. In one line, you skip every line. One line you do writing, space, writing, like you see over here. The other one you leave 2 spaces of writing. So instead of writing, space, writing, it's writing, space, writing, space, writing. You have 3 parts of ksav. Before the blank space, the middle, and after the blank space.
These are stumas.
Well, it's a good question. I mean, it's not really, it's like 2 stumas in a row. You're right. Every wine is 2 stumas. Sort of, that's kind of like that, yeah. Well, every other wine is a regular stuma, and every other wine is 2 stumas, yeah. No, we're just calling it that for clarification. It's not called our parsha. The Seresh Adibris you have in the middle of pasuk says the parsha. This is just that's a tzur. It's not really a parsha. Yeah. You have here every line. Well, it's not mamish exact. I don't know if it has to. You basically have here. You have wherever on top is blank space is between writing, and wherever on top is writing is between blank space. So you have sav corresponding to the rebach, the space on top of and below it, and here in the middle you have ksav corresponding to the space on top below. It's not exact, but it's overall. This is the tzura. I don't think you have to read this. I just want you to look at it. Now, what's funny is that Elam says he describes one line you have writing space writing, and next line you have writing space writing space writing. But actually, the first line is the opposite. It starts with writing space writing space writing. So why does Rambam say it in this order? No, right question. Call it Torah Kula. The whole term, Vein B'Shirei, Vein B'Shal Ksav, whether it's a shir, other part of right there. The letters should be very close together. They should not be touching. They should be far either. All the distance between letters should be proportionate. It should be the same. You should make sure a word, does not appear like 2 separate words. The side between the letters should be just a hair's breadth. If the letters are separated in a way that the word actually looks like 2 separate words, the teenage sheni to a child who doesn't know the words wrong, meaning a person who recognizes the words sees the one word, but a child who sees separate letters, for him it looks like there's 2 different words. Harei is a puzzle, and it's puzzle I keep talking until you correct it.
Okay.
Baruch